Welcome to another episode of Bringing Down the Grindhouse, a podcast where we discuss horror in media. And today, look, it's daytime outside, urban witches, spellcraft, and vomiting kittens. We'll cover this and more as we delve into brand new cherry flavor. I'm Mitch.
I'm Myrn.
I'm Justine.
And I'm Jonathan.
It's also Justine's birthday today, and I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, we're going to dinner later tonight.
Oh,
yeah.
Dinner.
Podcast dinner. Yeah, definitely. We're excited.
Justine's birthday. And you got to pick whatever you want.
Yeah,
so you chose.
So I chose brand new cherry flavor, and here's why. The only reason I found out about this show is actually a TikTok where people are freaking out about a sex scene that happens in the show. And if you know, you know, and we're going to discuss that later. But I watched a little bit ahead of when that scene happened, and I was really intrigued by the strangeness of this story. All I see is giving birth to kittens from the side of her ribs. That I had zero context before that, and I was like, what the fuck is this? I have to watch it. Was not expecting to enjoy the show as much as I did, but it was everything I wanted from a show, and it fits within our horror genre, so I thought, why the fuck not? Let's talk about it for my birthday episode.
I guess we'll get into production notes before we get into the deep dive on the episodes that we watched.
Hit us, Mur.
All right. So brand new cherry flavor. It's a Netflix TV series. And it was created by Nick Antosca, who we've talked about prior. He was the one that made The Quiet Boy, the short story that we covered that was also translated into the movie Antlers. So This is after Antlers, and this is like the next step up for them in production style. They were doing, they directed one episode as well as wrote for the majority of the series. So Netflix,
who was the other writer?
Along with Nick Antosca is Lenore Zion. She is also. They also based this story off of Todd Grimson. So this is like brand new cherry flavor is a piece of fiction that's already in writing. So they wanted to adapt it as well as get some new creatives from Hollywood into the foyer. Because apart from this, both Zion and Antosca. They work on similar shows as well as I'd say about 4 or 5 projects together. So for this to be their Netflix debut, it's pretty cool and pretty big for them. Other than that, I guess I could talk about the cast that is in this series. When I find my list, I don't use notes. I use a phone. So for our main character, we have Rosa Salazar as Lisa Nova. Catherine Keener as Boro or Jennifer Nathan.
I love her.
Boro.
Eric Lange as Lou Burke and Jeff Ward as Roy Hardaway. So these are our pinnacle, main 4 characters that we go with.
Yeah, fuck Lou Burke.
We go through a lot of different characters that are kind of here and there.
Side characters.
Manny Jacinto as Chris or Code, best friend to Lisa Nova. Hannah Levin as Christine, his girlfriend.
She was hilarious and really chaotic as a character.
Sienna Werber as Mary Gray or Boro, basically both characters.
Also known as Jennifer.
Yeah. Daniel Doheny as Jonathan Burke, the son of Lou Burke, who we'll get into the series. Darcy Laurie as Ralph, as well as Sean Owen Roberts as James. And then you got a little cameo, Patrick Fisher as Alvin Sender. So, very short, very small
It is a
cast
limited
of characters.
series, too.
It is a limited series, so I'm pretty sure that means this is it. They're not going to try to make a second season.
I kind of appreciate that, though, because I appreciate stories that end. If you have a goal in mind, and I think that this particular, little contained series is great. It's just wonderful on its own. It just doesn't need... It's all explained.
I agree with the sentiment, but we'll probably deep dive into specifics when we do more of the analysis. Where do you want to start with this?
Let's start at the beginning.
Yeah. Do you want us to talk about our first impressions or thoughts?
Well, let's talk a little bit about what the story is exactly. So this story follows Lisa Nova, who is a young, aspiring writer, director, producer. Reminds me of somebody, actually. Our writer, director, producer editor, filmmaker Jonathan Sotelo.
His degree is somewhere around the apartment
as it sits above my computer.
Yeah.
right above the camera. Look at that piece of paper.
Just a
very expensive piece of paper up there.
A daily reminder of how much time I've wasted while working my 40-hour dead-end job. Anyway.
So we drop in with Lisa as she enters the lovely city of Los Angeles, looking to strike a new movie deal after completing a short film that she was working on, which is an interesting story that we hear developed a little bit more later on in the series. So her first encounter was with Lou Burke.
Yeah, she gets a message from an executive producer, Lou Burke, who basically doesn't really do this kind of stuff. He doesn't really like to fund nobodies, but something compelled him to grab the tape of Lisa Nova's and play it and contact and reach her.
Mm-hmm. So Lou Burke as a character is a complete asshole, actually. I was really hopeful in the start that he was going to be a genuinely nice guy.
I mean, it plays out that way for a good while.
It does play out that way. But as we get to know him a little more, we realize he is your standard depiction of Hollywood sleazebag.
Yeah, he's very predatory towards Lisa in that as soon as she rejects his
sexual advances, which are very forceful, that she then kind of loses her deal. Mm-hmm. That he's like, she even asks him at some point, she's like, what changed? And he admits that when she rejects him, that he felt small.
But mind you, this isn't something he really shared with her until the very end, once he
had
completely broken her down with the witch's curse.
Yeah.
So enter Boro, who we find at some art gallery party thing.
Yeah.
I don't know the actress's name, but I do know that she was in 40-Year-Old Virgin.
She was.
And she plays the grandma.
Yeah.
Or the quote-unquote grandma.
Catherine Keener.
Catherine Keener, thank you. And she's great in this.
She's fantastic.
Yeah, just as she was great in that, too.
She's great. I feel like she's just unhinged in this show, almost all the way through.
So that's something interesting, too, is who Boro is exactly.
I love the backstory.
So essentially, we'll call them a witch, but this is also an ancient creature spirit thing that body hops. Mm-hmm. Spoilers. There's going to be a lot of spoilers in this episode. Yeah. You should probably watch this show before you hear this episode. But yeah, so she's like a Brazilian.
Was I understanding it right that Boro is only a piece of the power that came from the initial god?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was existing within a jaguar's body, basically?
Yeah.
We got a good lore dump, I'd say about 6 or 7 episodes in, where Boro explains that her original life was as a man who was in the jungles of Brazil, happened upon a white jaguar.
That he fucked. He fucked the jaguar.
Thought it was going to kill him, ended up fucking it.
Don't know how.
How do you fuck a jaguar?
I don't
is
my
question.
Hence the cats, all the kittens.
Yeah.
So
essentially,
cat god.
Essentially, after that, the jaguar finds a liking to this human person and gives them some sort of mystical powers, the powers to body hop, unbeknownst to them. And so when they were on the, I'd say, verge of death at this time in Brazil, they hopped towards a little girl and took their soul, and actually took their body and replaced it with their own soul. And ever since then, it could be years, thousands of years, this has been occurring.
Right. Mind you, Boro was essentially murdered then by this leopard spirit for betraying it, essentially lying, not giving the proper sacrifice. So they've been beefing for centuries.
Yeah.
And this beef is never ending.
It's never ending, and it's basically culminated to this point where the character that they play, Jennifer or Boro, lives in LA, is kind of like a mystical sort, has hirelings that she owns.
Zombies.
Yeah, essentially
zombies, as well as knows when the right time to find a replacement host body. Not only that, but we do get the lore and the backlog info that the jaguar has been turned into a couch,
which is very sad to think about. But it makes me wonder too, if the jaguar could teach someone to body hop, could the jaguar body hop as well?
Most likely.
Because I wouldn't imagine a god to have a physical body, but in this case, if the leopard was murdered, that must insinuate that the god possibly as hot bodies since they're hanging around too. So it's sort of an interesting thing we'll probably never learn is whether the gods still exist or not. In this case, they do exist in a spirit realm, but it's possible that they are also inhabiting a body somewhere.
They don't really answer the question of whether or not the mom is actually trying to find her, because she's convinced of this at some point. Mm-hmm. So a few unanswered questions, but enough mystery for a limited series that you're very interested right from the get-go. This is also really surreal all the way through. So it's modern day, it's surreal. It's something that you're not typically seeing along with witchcraft. You usually kind of go down the route of it being older, like a period piece, or being really specific, like I don't know, The Craft.
Right.
I
feel like The Craft was the last time I really saw this urban fantasy witchery.
Right. And so
at least in this scale.
And it's cool that it's in Los Angeles, around the film industry, because it's notoriously a kind of bad business to be in if you're trying to cut deals.
Yeah, so essentially how Boro gets played into the mix is Lou Burke is a shithead and steals Lisa Nova's idea, steals all the credit, which is something that happens quite often in Hollywood, is people will go uncredited for the work that they've presented to people, especially when you're not someone that's attached to any sort of big name production companies, haven't done a whole lot of work. It's easy for people to take advantage of the work that you do. Oh yeah,
definitely.
And this is a prime example of that. And, there's also the fact that he physically assaulted Lisa Nova.
Yeah, so the entirety of this narrative begins with Lisa Nova's basically someone that made a short film. They wanted to move to Hollywood to get their big break. Essentially, they meet up with their executive producer. That person came on to them, and they left entirely, as well as written an agreement with Lou Burke to basically have the rights be made under her for her to direct and basically make this film. And there was some fine print, even though her friends tried to find it, but basically gave the rights away to Lou Burke, and he decides to ditch Lisa Nova and get an up-and-coming director who does music videos to take her place, leaving no room for her because something changed. Something changed. I put my hand on her leg, and she didn't want to do it, so something changed in the production.
Yikes!
And so this is a telltale tale of basically how some stuff in Hollywood happens. I mean,
but I appreciate my girl Lisa for wanting to take her revenge on that asshole, and she does through Boro's magical ways. So cue Boro at the party, gives them an offer they can't refuse. Comes with a hefty price tag though, but a lot of fun ensues from that. Everything from a worm being inserted into somebody's body, wreaking havoc, somebody catching on fire. Getting sent to the hospital covered in bandages, all that good stuff.
Literal murder.
And,
it's a very violent show, by the way.
One thing you should know about magic, though, is everything does have its price. And in this case, if you ask a witch to do a favor for you, you're going to have to pay one way or another. Lisa didn't have much in the way of money, but she had other things that she wanted. In this case, it was cats.
Yeah.
Well, why does she want the cats?
That's still up for debate. I think so. The thing I found really interesting about the show is the cats aspect. Is Lisa is regularly puking up baby kittens.
Yeah.
Or in one
screen.
instance, giving birth to a kitten from their ribs, which is really fun.
Well, that was because she was like, I don't want to be throwing up these things anymore. So she's like, okay, I'll find another way to get them out.
Yeah.
And it's literally just like an opening on her side that reveals her intestines and other things like that.
Which is also a leading way to a very interesting sex scene that happens in this. I don't know how to approach this.
Fucking the ribs where the cat vagina has grown because she didn't want to throw up
Apparently it's
cats.
pleasurable for her too, right?
Like I guess
what
so.
we were getting from that moment.
I mean, they looked like they were having a good time.
Or is it like a weird discomfort thing where you're not sure?
I think it's one of those body horror aspects where you realize you have a fucking vagina growing on the side of your fucking hand.
It was just wild. Like it was a really
I just want to know who
surreal,
comes
weird.
up with this kind of stuff.
Oh, people who want to get their break.
Yeah, prime example. But
Yeah.
so, what were you guys' first impressions about
I
this
was
series?
very hooked from the beginning of the story because it's a very easy topic to relate to. Basically, someone taking their own thing and going out on their own is very relatable. Specifically, going to LA is something that we hear all the time in California. So I've heard this from many people. I've heard people also leave from LA. So for me, it seemed like a very set in reality thing, but then it goes more paranormal and psychological and psychedelic in its execution, which I appreciate ever since she has the initiation with Boro. And then eventually I'll talk more about it, but first impressions are looking good. I was hooked in for the first 4 or 5 episodes really deeply. So that's what I got from that. The production design is incredible. Cinematography takes risks. In some cases, they get completely upside down. They do all kinds of different tricks.
That's great. I love that.
And I say this for the production design is because they have to make a plant grow in a room over the course of an entire week.
Yeah,
and
so you had to plan that out.
So you basically get an entire room being engulfed in jungle, as well as the modification of an apartment to have a trap door and stuff. I give props to everyone that worked on that.
Yeah. So it's not often that you run into a urban fantasy story like this, or like urban witchcraft, I guess you could say. I mean, I've only seen like so many other urban fantasies that exist that I've actually like read through. It's like Dresden Files or something along those lines, which falls more underneath like noir, like fantasy noir, urban fantasy noir kind of thing. This kind of has aspects of that too.
I'm reminded of that Netflix show Bright that they did.
Yeah, like
but
that
like
too.
In a different way.
That's also urban fantasy, and that's a bad
more
movie.
That could have been so much better, but we'll talk about it another time.
Oh man. I have complaints anyway, but regardless, we're not talking about Bright. We're talking about brand new cherry flavor. And I loved the portrayal of magic and like the give and take kind of aspect of it. You know, what you put out is what you get back, sort of thing. So when she puts curse on our evil producer,
Lou Burke.
Lou Burke.
Lou Burke.
No, he bad. But you see how his life starts falling apart because of this curse, but her life also seems to kind of start falling apart in tandem with that. So it's sort of a warning against using magic to harm others.
Yeah.
I suppose.
I think also a warning of connecting yourself to said curse, because they established that in the beginning that their souls were connected through this curse.
Right.
Yeah.
And evil parts are dealt on both sides. Maybe they look a little bit different, but each person's life fell apart just as much as the last person.
What was your first impressions?
My first impressions? I'm gonna let Jonathan talk first.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, I was hooked immediately because this is right up my lane for style choices. So I love surrealism. I like urban fantasies as well because it gives you the room to recreate what you originally knew as the boundaries of what magic is. In this case, the give and exchange is a huge thing for her, and it's much of the plot line for what happens to her. So it worked really well that she was gonna give out a lot of curses, but then a lot of shit happens to her too. I was already caught with the idea that, you know, she possibly may have done something bad at some point and was running away from that. And so she then was sort of getting into trying to restart her life by doing that. It's revealed at some point in the show that she basically allowed her girlfriend of the time to take peyote and shoot a horror film. And so the girl goes kind of mad and pulls out her own eye. And she records it and then sends it in, and people are like, this is amazing, because they don't realize that it's real.
Yeah, they believe it's
like,
special
wow,
effects.
these practical effects, man.
So, like, she's already kind of a character that's questionable on whether or not she's done something good or not. But I especially liked the idea that she's going into an industry where women are almost always going to suffer, which is going to be that they are not taken seriously. They're not in charge. They often suffer bodily. So it becomes a bodily horror where things happen to her physically, not only mentally. So you get this sort of analysis all the way through what might happen to somebody going into the industry in a weird, surreal way. And that is a cool interpretation of the terrible film industry.
I think something that really struck me about this show right away was, like Mur was talking about, the cinematography, the production behind this.
Yeah,
it's
gorgeous.
beautifully well done. The color palettes that are used in every single scene, the just the places that they're in general. I believe this takes place in what, the 90s?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like the 90s.
And it feels very 90s. You have the old dial phones that were still kind of a thing at the 90s. You know, we're kind of getting like the little buttons at that point.
This is kind of like a production sheet too.
Yeah.
Where you're able to just use old school stuff, which is not that hard to find. 90s stuff is still pretty cheap to find
definitely.
and for production value.
But I am a big sucker for aesthetic value, and this show definitely has the aesthetic value necessary to be on a list of things that I would want to talk about. But what I also really appreciated from this show was the depiction of magic. And I feel like a lot of times when magic is shown in shows, it's seen as this very like one-sided thing, like, ooh, I'm going to cast a little spell and there's going to be no consequence for casting this spell.
Yeah.
But there is a tax for just about everything, whether it's an energetic tax or a binding contract of some sort. And that is the same for this, is every favor requires fuel.
Yeah.
And the fuel comes in many different forms, and it's really up to the whim of those who are giving you this favor. But I think the same goes in a lot of cases for any sort of relationship you get into when it comes to being in any sort of entertainment industry. Is nothing's for free.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of dues that you have to pay to get where you want to be.
It should also be noted that the basis of the magic and witchcraft in this story is not Eurocentric based.
Yes.
This is from South America, from Brazil. And so this changes a lot of your expectations for what you might see in popular media in regards to witchcraft, which is why it's so weird.
Yeah, and good for them too for finally expanding the scope of what magic can be. Because like we had said, a lot of magic is shown is Eurocentric. Not to say that there's anything wrong with Eurocentric magic, but it's all we see in pop culture.
Right.
We see the pagans and the Wiccans and all of that stuff, which is largely based around Europe. That doesn't really exist culturally and historically in other countries as well.
They're naturally born with it in most cases.
Yes.
And in this case, this is borrowed power and that you then have to pay for.
Which is imbued by the relationship you have with a deity or sometimes a soul family contract.
After our 2 witchcraft episodes that we did, I think that I found that a lot of our pagan witchcraft things have a lot. We found that they have a lot of similarities to them, and then this is a much more accurate representation of how some cultures and how a lot of them did believe that magic is used and how it works, and that send out, come back sort of idea. Give and take, the balancing of things and such. So I think that is very, very relevant to this movie in itself. And what makes it so good, or not movie, this show rather, is what makes it so good is that it does take a grounded approach to this and a historical approach as well.
It's also not something you just see fly out of their hands.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like I cast a lightning bolt. Yeah, it's nothing
not
like that.
Harry
That's not the
type.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to discuss the level of violence at an animal level.
Oh, geez. Yeah, so...
animal violence.
Okay, here's my thing, is I'm usually not one to stand for animal violence senselessly, but I do also understand the importance of animal sacrifice in ritualistic sense. This is something that comes across in many magical practices that are not Eurocentric based.
Yep.
Is animal sacrifice. And here's the way I want to think about it is these animals are being honored and they're being sacrificed for a very specific purpose, but it's done with intention. It's done with thoughtfulness. We collectively, not everybody, especially those who don't eat meat, but we senselessly murder animals all the time. And it's more acceptable if we don't see it happening and if we're not doing it from our own hands. But we see someone else doing it, and automatically it sort of instills this panic response in us. But I want us to reevaluate the idea of animal sacrifice in this sense, that these animals are being honored, every part of them.
Well, I don't know if maybe I misunderstood, but when the little kittens are getting created, that to me felt like there was a piece of her, I don't know, essence, soul.
I believe
energy,
that too.
I believe
that then
that
got
as well.
taken out, and Boro was taking that to then re-energize herself for either staying in the body or to be able to keep doing these magical
probably
things.
makes sense why she would make slippers out of these kittens.
Well, I
too.
mean, she's drinking the blood.
And drinking the blood as well.
Like a source of energy, and that's very much in line with your blood magic type things. So, I mean, they even have sex magic.
Yeah.
That's a thing she has to do, a part of it. So, that to me, it was not to diminish the idea that they're hurting animals, but like in a lot of ways, it's not actually a kitten. It's kind of like a manifestation of the energy that's being exchanged from one to the other.
It's like using youthful energy to make yourself powerful or young or whatever. Like Elizabeth Bathory type levels of shit. Like that type of thing.
I just wanted to discuss it because, like, for anyone that's interested in the series, like, there is a certain level of animal violence. And, like, I don't know. I, for one, don't like watching that stuff. But it's been quite some time since I've seen it depicted in a film or media. So for me, it's very much stood out because you don't see that every day.
Right.
So for those who are squeamish, I just give you a warning.
The dog does die in this show. I don't think any dogs actually die, but there's quite a few other little critters that will die.
There is for sure a guinea pig that gets fucked.
Oh my god.
Not fucked, sorry. It gets demolished.
And that's kind of what this whole show is just stuff that you don't see that often.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very original thing, and I'm so glad that we get to see more of Anticosta's work being made into visual pieces, because I'm sure the book is fucking phenomenal.
Oh yeah,
I was wondering about that too, which is how like the story.
He wrote the book, right? It was his book that he, or no, he did not write the book, or is he just adapting? He just adapted the screenwriting.
It says credit as creating the show as well as directing an episode.
Oh, okay.
But also a writer.
I'm just happy he's getting work.
Yeah, me too.
That's it. He's getting work. I'm happy for my boy.
This is like one of the brand new things that they've done post The Quiet Boy for Antlers. So we're basically seeing someone on a certain rise right now.
That's cool. I appreciate the show is extremely unpredictable. I had a hard time knowing where the storyline was going to go all the way through.
Oh, same.
Which is a great way to build a story because you don't want to be predictable.
And you know me, I've got a skill for predicting about how things are going to turn out. But in this one, I had my predictions. Very rarely would they actually come true. In most cases, they didn't come true.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the big thing for me was I thought she was going to be done with Lou Burke, kind of curse him, and then go on and try to find a different avenue. And when I realized that the story was going to be more self-contained, it kind of like put my expectations a little bit more down. I'm going to admit. But what is presented is pretty fun. I like the interaction that she has with her other characters and the revenge that Lou Burke goes on to enact on her, because let's face it, a lot of shit happens to Lou Burke that's like, oof. Just a big oof moment.
Yeah. I think the major turning point with Lou Burke is when his son gets turned into a zombie, essentially.
Right.
And his son was one of the very few things I think he actually held dear in his life.
Yeah, a graduated college student who is an aspiring artist who is in good health. I can only imagine that that was a big blow to him.
The show did make a joke about how he was not very successful as an artist, and that he was returning home essentially because he couldn't cut it as an artist wherever he was at.
And not only that, it kind of shadows his father because he is a washed up, quote unquote, kind of producer for these kind of things. Hasn't done anything relevant since '85 is what they make jokes about.
They do a really good job of making sure you don't really give a fuck about Lou.
Yeah, Lou has a lot of stuff that happens to him. His falcons die, his wife leaves him.
Okay, that shit was funny though, when his house has so many people inside and he's trying to sort out everything that's happening.
I love the Exterminator dudes. Whoever are playing those guys, they did great. Just like, there's no bugs here, man. There's a fucking tarantula that gave my kid a boner. Like,
they had a lot. They had a lot of running jokes through it. One of the jokes that was funny to me too was the friend whose head was wrapped because she had just gotten surgery.
Oh, and then
you see her at the end.
What's funny too is there's a mystery girl. We don't really know what she looks like until the very end, completely wrapped in bandages. And her boyfriend happens to be the director that was going to replace Lisa Nova, who then gets spontaneously set on fire at a party and is then himself wrapped in bandages. And I don't know, they were just made for each other.
She even says they made a new pair of lips out of his thigh meat. Which is so fucked. And she's like super excited, and it's funny because you see it for the first time and Lisa's even like, oh, like it looks nice, I see it now, because she says she's gonna look like a famous star, and she does, which is kind of crazy. So they have their moments of running jokes all the way through, and that's something that was interesting. While you're watching it,
how dark this show is, it's still very lighthearted in most moments. I mean, Boro, as threatening and terrifying as she is also just kind of having a good time the whole time. Cracking jokes, playing both sides. She's having fun. And props to her. If you're having fun, you're doing something right.
I guess what, chaotic neutral? Because she does help everybody.
Yeah, she plays all sides.
She doesn't lie either.
That's true. She doesn't.
Like, she has many opportunities to be like, are you the chick that's putting the curse on me? Yes, I am.
But I mean, what is he gonna do? She's like all powerful in comparison to just
I
about
was
anyone.
really wondering about her sort of powers and how often she can use them. They seem to really take a lot out of her anytime she does something, to the point of like exhaustion.
I think that's part of why she has her little zombies, is to keep her protected. Essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that dude is definitely there to keep her safe.
After this, the story escalates. Lou Burke wants revenge. He hires people to murder Lisa Nova.
And almost gets away with it. They almost actually kill her in one scene, and then she's reborn as, I don't even know what, but somehow tears this man's throat out at some point.
Yeah.
Well, the
You're talking
hitman.
about Lisa?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what happened was she got a bit of the power and was then able to like literally grow fangs and teeth and the claws, and just ended up attacking him. But like, it really doesn't specify.
Yeah, you never actually see it. Implies that she has a physical transformation that happens when she's threatened.
Because there's like bones cracking and like squelching and things like that.
But we never actually get to see it. So we don't know how that really plays out. But all we know is she's capable of quite literally ripping a man to shreds.
It was referenced that after the milk bath in episode 5, that Boro gave her like a certain vial that basically helps her to become more powerful than she is right now.
Yeah.
And so after her entire thing, all of her wounds are healed, and she goes to get that guy, of course.
There's something about that, though. I'm sorry, I want to interrupt real quick. Is we find out that Lisa Nova is actually attached to this leopard god. And that this is a family connection that she has. Her mother somehow was involved with this god. And I believe that she already had the power of the leopard within her, except it was suppressed by something. And I believe that this vial she gave her didn't necessarily give her power. It rather unlocked or unblocked the power that was already there.
Is it possible then that Lisa is like, I don't know, your demigod?
I think she could be.
Half.
She could be, and I think that's why Boro, we find out, wanted her body so
why
badly.
She wants to switch over.
I love that her mother is trying to connect with her from the spirit world, because Boro warns her that spirits will try to contact her.
Yeah.
The entire series, she believes it to be some kind of monster that's trying to kill her. When in
kind
reality,
of a wild-looking like flashes to something else. It looks like a shrunken head, in my opinion.
Yeah.
When in reality, it is just the manifestation of her mother, who she believes to be a woman with no face. And it basically haunts her dreams and stuff.
Yeah, because she doesn't know her.
Yeah.
She's basically like, I don't know what she looks like.
It's kind of a big ego reason for her to like make a film in Hollywood, because she wants to find her mother.
Yeah, there was also a bit of the storyline where she is looking to go off away from home to get something done, but then finds that the best choice is to return home.
The introduction of the old girlfriend is definitely like leads you to not know who to root for in this situation, which I think is a really strong part of this series as well, is that it keeps you kind of going back and forth to a nice gray area where there is no clear evil, no clear good here.
That's not even discussing the actor that Lisa Nova dealt with.
Roy.
The entire time, who was nothing but supportive the entire time, honestly.
And ended up getting fucked over in the end.
Okay, but...
Well, it wasn't Lisa's fault.
No,
it's
so
an
one, it wasn't her
actor.
fault. Two, he's a drug addict and was recovering, and even admitted at some point that she was kind of like that feeling to him. And nobody should ever choose to live because of another person. Like, that's a lot to put on someone.
And I think that was his fault, and part of the reason why he was also ripped to shreds in the end. Not by Lisa, though. He was ripped to shreds by the zombie friends.
He gets his head torn off.
Yeah, literally torn off. It was wild.
Lisa Nova also isn't a character that like some people could be rooting for too, because she has that entire past thing with the girl with the one eye. She could have easily stopped her friend from eating her own eye on film.
I forgot she tore it out and ate it.
Decided to go against that and make a fucking film.
Yeah.
and make her eat her own eye out, and she still doesn't even know because she only believes that she was on peyote.
And then just ditches her after that. There's no follow up. There's no, hey, how you doing? She even says at some point, Boro asks what the actress was to her, and she was like, just that. She's just an actress. She's whatever I want her to be. And you get that idea that Lisa's just as manipulative as some of these people who are out here in Hollywood.
Yeah. So that's where, like, at some point, my gripes with like the project comes in. I'm glad that it's a limited series because I thought that the last episode was lacking in a lot of stuff. I felt that episode 10, which was written by Acosta, there's a lot of overacting from a lot of these amateur actors. Lisa goes off the rails to a point where I'm just like, you're reading it off the script to me. You're not portraying this off the script for me. And then I found that she was very hard to connect with. After all of this, I kind of felt like everything that has happened, the culmination, hiding a murder, dealing with completely ruining this dude's life, and her basically having to go through all these struggles, like getting basically killed. It felt very distant for me. I did not care for the character at the end of the movie, and it kind of makes that the point because they also make it so she doesn't ever actually make her movie. She gets exactly what she wants. She becomes the director of her own film, gets a good shoe-in with the producer Alvin, who even says he has no talents except for money, and doesn't even make the film. Decides to get.
At least he's honest.
I love that conversation.
Yeah. Decides to get a plane ticket to Brazil, which I felt was like a very unsatisfying ending for me, and makes me believe that they shouldn't continue the series and that they should keep it on the shelf. That's how I feel about this. Everything else up to that point, I was sold. I was sold for the curse. I was sold for the interactions with all these characters trying to solve problems. But at the end, I felt that the main character was flat. And so that's where I have the gripes with the series for myself.
I would even say that might play into a lot of the plot, because as we were discussing before, the kittens essentially represent her soul essence. And she's thrown up and given birth to how many of these kittens? So much of her soul has been taken by Boro. And at the end, you see a flat, soulless character pretty much. What was there in the beginning is no longer. She's a husk of who she was before. But that's, once again, the price that she had to pay for something like that.
Yeah, which I understand. At the same time, the overacting like really killed it for me. I could not get into it after that. I felt like some things could have been justified.
I have to agree with Murr on this. That I think that I think like maybe your last like 2 episodes of it were kind of like the most lacking, just because it felt rushed. It felt rushed, like they were getting right to the very end of the story now, and now we're at the end because now it's episode 10. We have to end right here, and that I think kind of messes with the pacing of them setting everything up to eventually, knock it all down.
Yeah, I mean, you're making if you have the intention to make a limited series on that 9th or 10th episode, you want to rush. I get that, but if they were to just make this a series, they could have left more to interpretation as well as more to the creativity that follows it.
I think, honestly, if they had maybe 1 or 2 additional episodes in the series, they would have had a lot more time to develop that ending. Because I agree, the ending did feel rushed. It felt like everything kind of came to a head in the very last episode. Which usually in these kind of instances, you want the last 3 episodes to all feel like the ending.
Reveal.
Yes.
Conclusion.
I was also pretty disheartened with the passing of Roy in the series. I thought that his character really didn't do too much wrong. Other than fully support Lisa. I would have loved to at least have him alive. I don't think outright killing the character gives credit to the character.
I think he foreshadowed his own death, honestly.
Yeah. So I have a completely different take than what you guys think. I think the ending is exactly what it needed to be for her character and why she originally intended to go and do what she was doing. Roy, I don't think is actually that good of a character. I think he is just a movie star who was bored, a previous drug addict who was wasting his time with her and was probably going to drop her as soon as he got back into drugs. So that to me was kind of who cares about this dude anyway? you do get attached to him at some point because of his connection to Lisa and his honesty. But then again, like I mentioned earlier, I don't want to have somebody tell me that the only reason why they're living is because they like the feeling they have around
Exactly.
me.
He really said he was just along for the ride.
Yeah, so like that to me is kind of weird. As for like the ending, for me it made sense that she is no longer caring about something as trivial as making a movie when she finds out that she's getting literal powers from a jaguar god. Like that makes sense to go back home to figure out what's going on with her family, and that to me makes more sense for the story and the mystery of why she would do something like that. You're then kind of pushing aside the initial story for what you've been building up the entire series.
Yeah.
And so that to me makes more sense.
I suppose what me and Murr are saying can be considered a tiny bit nitpicky.
Yeah.
just a little bit nitpicky. However, I do want this to say that I did really enjoy the series.
Yeah, it's
I'm happy with it as it is, and I do not want to see a sequel because I think they'll just be stretching out more than we need to stretch out.
It's
The mystique of Boro will go away and whatnot, I think, if you continue to analyze it further.
She's also in a new body too by the end.
Yeah,
of it.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's we get it.
I would hate to see a part 2 where we follow Lisa Nova into the jungles of Brazil, honestly.
That'd be kind of a different story. Like
it
wouldn't match the vibe.
Leave it up to interpretation is the way to go for this content, I believe. Now that I've heard that, it kind of makes sense where it is. So, do you guys have any favorite scenes for this?
You mean aside from the guts fist fucking?
Yeah.
Like,
aside from the lung pussy.
You want the you want the point of view.
Yeah, what's the point of view, actually?
What's your point
Give us your point of view.
No, my question is why he didn't put his dick. No, I'm just kidding.
They can't show that on camera.
That's true. They won't show dicks on camera for some reason.
So the rib vagina, or as I like to call it, the la pussy.
The la pussy? Nice.
It's a pussy in your. It's a pussy in your lungs.
Oh my god.
It seems like
the pussy.
It seems like it would change, everything. Because not only do you have, an area to go down traditionally, you now have this new 2022 La Pussy and all of its features. It changes everything. You're no longer looking face to face. You're looking side to boob. All right? This changes the game.
Oh, man.
I want to know how many different ways you could do this.
I want to know if that was CGI or practical.
Oh, it's definitely practical effects.
Yeah, but you know what this means to me, though? That means that now the entire book on sex positions will expand because of the advent of the La Pussy. So now there's going to be like upside down, to the side, normal,
You could even spin.
I don't think any of them are normal.
Wait. So, but if they become the norm, then there will be ones where they're like, oh, you do the sideways board. You gotta do upside down, bro. You flip her upside down and you go at the lung.
Yeah, that's when porn sections have all 4 holes instead of all 3 holes.
Dead.
Gives DP a whole new meaning. You can do tree P.
I feel like there's
or try. Yeah, TP.
Wouldn't it be? Never mind.
Okay. So that is the point of view. It changes the game.
Shit.
It changes the game, and I like the practical effects that they use on this.
Yeah.
When she's discovering that it is pleasurable, it was pretty funny to me. I kind of snickered. It's it's a
dope
pussy.
Body horror. Some good body horror.
But aside from that, is that your favorite scene?
No,
the pussy?
no. I loved when the dude got literally lit on fire.
Oh,
Ooh.
yeah.
Because she was so mad at him that he just spontaneously combusted.
I wish I had just a normal, just a regular favorite scene, but pretty much everything that happens to our shitty producer
to
Lou. Everything that happens to
Yeah.
Lou is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just find it all very funny. I'm just the chaos that happens in his life is very entertaining to watch.
No, I agree. I think most of the scenes where he's just getting tortured are the best. But honestly, it's the Exterminators one for me.
Yeah, they're great.
And the fucking falcons and the tarantula and the boner.
The dead falcons is so fucked up.
All of it. It's just unhinged and so entertaining to watch. And honestly, haven't seen a whole lot of scenes that are like that, where you have just this curse unfolding in these unpredictable and chaotic ways. Man thinking he's going crazy, or maybe not, and he's trying to be as practical as he can about it, but in reality there's something very supernatural going on there.
I gotta say, the curse was definitely a fun thing to watch unfold, especially how it takes place after several amounts of days.
And some body acting too, where
yeah.
she had to like pretend like she was stuck, and it was just like writhing as she's trying to get through the curse.
I think I love basically the short film that she made. I love how it's shot. It feels
We would
like,
discuss her short film on this podcast.
It feels like something that someone would create if they had a very minimal budget.
Oh, definitely.
And when I saw the reactions of people near the end, I was like, I need to know what happened on the screen.
Yeah.
So when I finally get to see that character eat their own eyeball, I was impressed because I was like, I was like, damn, that was pretty believable. So I feel just like the people watching that. But not only that, you have that whole conversation where they're about to do coke together, and she puts in the root and the worm that fucks him up.
Oh my god!
Gives him way more hiccups.
Seeing that thing get pulled out of his eye was disturbing.
Nar.
Yeah, that too. The culmination of it to come into
It
literal.
looks like a tapeworm that's getting pulled out of his
I want to
head.
know how they did this practical effect. Just sticky something, just going all the way up.
I think they literally put like something on his eye. And
at some point, she
out.
has to start wrapping it on a knife. If there's so much sticky, like this bug is huge.
Yeah.
Then gives it to her son to eat, which is like.
I'm pretty sure a lot of these actors were in legitimate discomfort for the sake of what they were filming.
Not only that, there's a lot of surreal stuff that happens and flashbacks.
I think one of my favorite surreal moments was when she gets sent to the little jail, the drunk tank, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
And you have all of these women, ladies of the night, and they kind of flock around her like a pack of hyenas, I guess you could say. But it's the way they react. They comfort, and then they start to attack as soon as she starts asking too many questions. And I almost wonder if that was more than likely Boro's doing somehow to protect her own identity, to protect who she is.
Not only that, but they don't want to fuck with her after she pukes out a fucking kitten.
I mean, who would want to after weird shit like that? So
a live kitten too.
So what are our final ratings?
I'm gonna give this an 8.
Dude, that's what I was gonna do.
That's what I was gonna give.
I low-key was gonna give it an 8 as well.
Solid 8.
First in time. 8's all around.
8's all around. Solid B.
It's pretty solid. There are some moments where I'm like, why did this happen this way? And how did nobody notice? And it's just being nitpicky. But aside from that, there is a lot of moments of overacting.
Agreed.
And so you then are like, oh, this is cringy, like drama, like melodramatic at some points.
I want to believe that it was done purposefully, but honestly, if it was done purposefully, it's not easy to tell that.
Yeah, I would have liked them to also flesh out the side characters.
Yeah.
Her supposed best friend.
Code. Rest in peace.
We don't know anything about him. Like, we don't know anything about him.
We just know that he's a drug dealer.
Yeah.
And lives in a sick-ass warehouse.
Yeah, which is a dope house.
His plaid was cool.
But yeah, fill those characters out. Don't just do the main character. Like, fill out all the others and you get some more depth to it. That's what I think.
Yeah, I felt like even the death of his girlfriend wasn't like...
It wasn't that bad,
It wasn't even impactful.
Yeah.
I give it an 8 because... it's an excellently made series. Like, you got good cinematography, good use of music. The original soundtrack is fun, as well as the songs that they take from the 50s and stuff. Not only that, but a cool idea that Hollywood doesn't like to go into. Like, just urban witch cursing people is fun to watch. And then all that stuff that unfolds, I'm going to repeat what I said, where I feel like the last... 2 episodes just don't really hit home for me. I guess you could argue that it flips on its head on purpose, but for me, as like someone that enjoys stories like that, I kind of felt there was not much there, and the overacting really does kill it for me. So I don't, like Jonathan said, he doesn't know if it was like purposely done, but it could have been better. We're on the verge of melodramatic at some places, and we left that in 2002.
Yeah, I mirror all of these points. You guys have already pretty much said everything that I would have to say about this, other than urban fantasy is fucking cool. Do it well.
Yeah, there needs to be more.
This just shows that it can be done, and it can be done well, and we can see better stuff later. Stuff better than Bright. This is a big step up from Bright.
Yes.
That's what, as far as urban fantasy stuff goes. Although I did appreciate orcs and stuff. Good. Yeah, they were pretty great. I enjoyed it.
So my points for why I give it an 8 pretty much concur with all of yours as well. But I just wanted to give a little final thought, something I was talking about with one of my coworkers the other day, is the underrepresentation of practitioners in everyday life. Is that a lot of this seems very fantasy, but I will tell you right now, a lot of this shit is very, very real. Some of the most wealthiest people in the world go to psychics, go to magic practitioners, go to astrologers for their advice. Some of the most, I'm talking like billionaires, like top shit motherfuckers.
There's also been presidents who have
and
advisors.
Presidents, they have magical advisors, essentially. They consult astrologers to know when they should make certain trade deals, when they should do this, what they shouldn't do, what is the best timing for this particular course of action. This is something that is very well hidden in society. And all the talk about Hollywood being evil, I wouldn't say it's necessarily evil, but I would say that there are some dark underlying things that happen in the city that regular people aren't privy to. The fact that there are practitioners that are throwing curses and blessing people with certain opportunities. This is something that happens. Whether you want to believe it or not, you probably will never experience it. But if you have experienced it, you know. If you know, you know. That's my final thought on that. Very interesting to see it depicted in this way, though.
8s all around. Happy birthday, Justine!
Happy birthday, Justine!
Woo! Hey, Mitch.
What's up, Mer?
Have you noticed my sick-ass fit?
I have. Where'd you get that fit?
Oh, shit. Looks like we're wrapping up. I got it on our Teespring.
Whoa! What the? Oh, the Teespring. You mean that place where you can go to buy all of our merch? You mean
Absolutely.
Hats, shirts, pint glasses?
Mugs? Yeah. You can check that out on the link tree. But while you're there, you should also check out the other links to all our social medias.
Whoa.
So you get up-to-date news when we upload new episodes.
No, it's like Instagram, Facebook,
and Twitter.
And Twitter, too?
Yeah. We're all on all 3 of those.
Sheesh.
Yeah. Not only that, you could also check us out on Patreon where we have bonus content. I know you just uploaded something.
I did just upload something. I uploaded a, what was it? Fucking video games with gaming. Horror in Gaming with Mitch is what that special's called. Yeah, Horror in Gaming with Mitch. And I covered the game Carrion. And wrote a little 5-minute thing for it. I wrote most of it. So
yeah, you're a monster.
Yeah, you play as a monster in there. Yeah.
That was a
At first, I was like, did you insult me just now?
You were calling him a monster.
You know, but also, we have to thank our patrons because we do have a few of them. We've got Ray and Eric and that
other
Eric, and then we got both Erics, and then we also
about our Yeehaw.
And then there's the other. Yeah, we got our Yeehaw fan.
Fucking Sean!
Yeehaw! And then we also have that other. There was a film group, I believe, that covers film. Cult of Cinema as well. We have to thank you for donating to our Patreon. We really appreciate you.
What do they get if they do that?
If they get that bonus content, like that Carrion episode that I just mentioned, where I cover that game.
Anything else?
Oh yeah, they get to look at some bonus content, which I just mentioned. Some blooper stuff, which we're working on uploading at the moment. These things take time, and we have over 120 episodes worth of blooper content to go through, so it's a lot of work. But we're getting there. We're working on it.
And if you'd like to hang out with us more, check out our Discord, as well as our Twitch, where we will be live streaming.
Talk about a bunch of stuff on
Yeah.
On Discord, you can send us messages and discuss the content that we talk about, as well as send us memes and tell us how our day is going, even during the 40-hour work week. I'm going to flip them off. I'm at work. Go fucking touch grass. I love them. I love you. Please send memes. Anyways, other than that, you can check us out on the Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Give us a review as well as follow us and give us a rating.
We also have a YouTube channel.
What's that?
Our YouTube is completely up to date.
Yeah.
And now listen to every new episode.
For every motherfucker that's told me, are you guys on YouTube? Yes, motherfucker, we are on it.
We're on fucking YouTube now. Check it out.
The Northman, as well as oh god, what did we record last time?
Stranger Things.
Yeah, Stranger Things and the Northman will be up next week.
Yeah.
But the Stranger Things episode will actually have a visual like this one.
Nice.
Yeah, so
nice. We're upgrading right now.
We're upgrading.
Yeah, we're going through a lot of changes. I guess growing in some way as we figure out how to actually use everything. So I'm sorry if this video looks a little dark.
That's okay. We're a horror podcast.
Yeah, right,
It's
we're
not
working
dark.
with it.
What are we doing?
But yes, thank you so much for sitting with us this long. We sat through both episodes.
Yeah. And come hang out. I love you.
All right. I'm Mitch.
I'm Murr.
I'm Justine.
I'm Jonathan. Thank you.
Bye.